You're listening to a special AI-powered training session generated based on my original research and training documents. While the voices you are about to hear are AI-generated, the insights come directly from my verified material.
Welcome to the Epoch Zero Show. Today, we are unpacking Module 1.2.2, First AI Winter, 1974-1980. We're going to break this down into 5 parts. First, we'll define what the Great Freeze actually was. Then, we'll get into the cascade of failures that triggered it. From there, we'll look at the deep technical walls they slammed into. After that, we'll distill the lessons from that history. And finally, build a leadership playbook that you can use today. You have to understand, the first AI winter, it wasn't a random accident. It was a correction, a brutal but absolutely necessary reckoning with reality. And believe me, it holds some profound lessons for anyone building with AI right now. So let's be crystal clear on what we're talking about. In AI winter, it's what happens when credibility collapses. It's when the promises get so big and the actual performance is so small that the funding just evaporates. This isn't a one-time thing. It's a pattern. You know, back in the 60s, the pioneers, these were brilliant people. They were promising truly intelligent machines within a decade. So, what on earth went wrong? Well, the answer isn't a single failure. It was a cascade, one thing after another. It really came down to 3 critical reports, all in just 7 years. They just systematically dismantled the industry's funding and its entire reputation. And these weren't attacks from critics on the outside, no. These were rigorous internal assessments that basically concluded, this isn't working. So the whole collapse happened in 3 major blows. It kicks off in '66 with a very practical failure in machine translation. 3 years later, a major theoretical problem for neural nets is proven. And it all leads up to a final devastating report in '73 that condemned the entire field's approach. You can think of them like dominoes, each one knocking over the next. Okay, first domino, the ALPAC report. Remember, this was the Cold War. The US government was pouring a ton of money into machine translation. The ALPAC report was the audit of that spending. And it was brutal. It found that the machines were slower than humans, less accurate than humans, and more expensive. A total failure on every single metric. So the funding was cut, just like that. And machine translation as a field, it went dark for nearly 2 decades. Then, 3 years later, comes the theoretical blow. 2 of the biggest names in the field, Minsky and Papert, publish a book called Perceptrons. And in it, they mathematically proved a fundamental show-stopping limitation of the simple neural networks they were using at the time. Now, here's the thing. This conclusion got badly misinterpreted. The book only proved a limitation for single-layer networks, really simple ones. More complex, multi-layer networks could have solved the problem. But the key technique for training them, what we now call backpropagation, just wasn't widely understood yet, so the community took this one specific finding and overgeneralized it. They wrote off all neural networks, and because of that misunderstanding, research funding vanished for 15 years. And then came the final nail in the coffin, the Lighthill report out of the UK. Sir James Lighthill made this devastating argument that AI only worked on toy problems. He said that in the real world, the number of choices explodes exponentially, a combinatorial explosion, making the problems impossible for the computers they had. His report basically said AI had no viable path forward. The UK government agreed, and they shut down their major AI research labs. The winter wasn't coming anymore. It was here. You see, these reports, they were just the symptoms. The real disease ran much deeper. The pioneers had run headfirst into these massive, unseen technical walls. Walls they had completely underestimated. And this is where we get something called Moravec's paradox. It's fascinating. It turned out that the things that are hard for us humans, abstract logic, complex math, were actually pretty easy for the computers of the day. But the things we do without thinking, seeing the world, walking around, picking up an object, those turned out to be monstrously difficult for a machine. They thought they were solving the hardest problems first. Turns out, they had it completely backward. And 2 problems in particular proved just intractable. They really show the huge gap between just calculating something and actually understanding it. First, you have the frame problem. Think about it. If a robot moves a chair, how does it know that the color of the walls didn't change? We know this implicitly. For a machine, it was a crippling logical puzzle. And that's tied to the common sense knowledge problem, the enormous, unspoken database of how the world works that we all possess. Fire is hot. Strings can pull but not push. Without that foundation, these early AI systems were brittle, logic-bound, and fundamentally unintelligent. So, why are we digging all this up? Why does this history matter to you right now? Because these exact same patterns are repeating themselves today. If you want to lead effectively in AI, you absolutely have to turn these old failures into your modern strategy. And the parallels are direct. Their rampant overpromising teaches us to recognize and manage hype cycles. Their failure to move beyond toy problems, that teaches us to rigorously de-risk the jump to production scale. And their hardware limitations are a powerful reminder that physics and cost are always a factor. So this history gives us a clear playbook. For any leader deploying AI, the principles forged in that first winter are the foundation of success in this new age. So what's in this playbook? 4 essential steps. 1. Develop an immunity to hype. 2. Obsess over the risks of scaling. 3. Master the physical and financial constraints of your systems. And 4. Manage stakeholder expectations with brutal honesty. So how do you recognize hype? Look for these red flags. Claims without any hard, rigorous benchmarks. Demos that only show the best-case scenario. Vague promises of revolution without concrete plans. This is the exact same language they were using right before the first winter hit. Remember the Lighthill report. A successful demo in a lab is absolutely not a system in production. The single most important question a leader can ask a vendor or their own team is this: has this run at scale? If the answer is no, you are taking on significant risk. And hardware constraints never went away. They just changed form. Today, it isn't raw processing power. It's the operational cost of inference, GPU availability, and energy consumption. 4 cents per query might sound small, but at millions of queries a day, it becomes a core business constraint. This all leads to the final crucial point: stakeholder management. The antidote to the first AI winter is radical transparency. Underpromise and overdeliver. Set timelines in months, not weeks. Communicate what the system cannot do. And build a business that can survive when the inevitable funding downturn arrives.
The fundamental lesson is this: hype is a cycle. Physics is a constant. Lead accordingly.